Hi guys. So this is the fifth video on grounded theory as part of my qualitative research lecture. I have talked about in previous videos, I have talked about what grounded theory is and also about the different variants of grounded theory, how it should be conducted, what is coding, what are the different nomenclatures used in coding, and I also talked about transcripts, which is an important and essential aspect of qualitative research, particularly grounded theory research. Now here I'm going to address in this video an important and very essential aspect of grounded theory that you need to take care of while doing such qualitative research. So trustworthiness, as the term denotes, refers to the very idea of genuineness and the very idea of validation of whatever research, data collection and analysis that a researcher has done. In case of grounded theory, trustworthiness basically refers to the very fact whether your data collection process was free from biases and also whether the analysis and the conclusion drawn from your data is valid and can be considered reliable for further examination. Now to increase the trustworthiness, so I won't say that the study that you are doing will not have trustworthiness to any extent, but to increase the trustworthiness, the degree of trustworthiness, you basically follows four major aspects of trustworthiness that has been cited and discussed in prior literature. So what are these four components, or what I can say aspects of trustworthiness that a researcher should look into in order to ensure that the data and the analysis that one he or she is doing is reliable and can be further considered for academic contribution or scholarly contribution. The four aspects are credibility, transferability, dependability, and confirmability. Now, all these four aspects are very similar to what we do in quantitative research. So, the nomenclature is different and the approach would be different, but somehow they denote very similar to internal and external validity, reliability, and objectivity. Now, in case of grounded theory, people may raise the question that the data you are collected is biased and the analysis that you are done might have some biases involved, might have been manipulated, and also no generalizability can be attained for your analysis. So, to counter that, if you address these four aspects of trustworthiness, the reliability and validity of your results enhances. Now, how we increase the credibility of our results and findings? So, for that, we engage in prolonged discussion with the athletes, with the respondents whom we are interviewing. So, in my case, I engaged in multiple rounds of discussion with athletes who were my sample for my doctoral research. So what we do, we go to the field, we interact with people who are suitable for our data, and then we interview them not just once, but we try to engage with them in multiple rounds of discussion. Also, we don't follow very structured structured interview questions, and it is more appropriate and it is more what I can say desirable to follow a same structure, or what I can say free flow interviews, so that the informant has a freedom to express his or herself, and also to include more details, more data that can help you to build a more comprehensive model, emergent model. So prolonged engagement basically refers to more and more rounds of engagement with your informant, so that the data that you collect is more comprehensive. Here, what you can do is that even if the data collection process is difficult, as in you cannot go back to the field again to interview that person, what can be done is that you transcribe the interview, and then maybe you can share that transcript with that particular individual, only that person who has been interviewed and that transcription has been done for his or her interview. You can share that transcript with that person, and then you may request that person to give his or her feedback, and maybe that person would like to add something more to it, or maybe that person would like to reduce the content. So depending upon what that person is suggesting, you will make necessary changes. So if that person is saying that no, I am not comfortable with this content, can you remove it, you have to remove it in order to ensure that there is no biases in your finding. So this is what we call thick description. So when we move to credibility, from credibility to transferability, a thick description basically helps you to ensure that whatever data that you have collected and analyzed is suitable across different contexts and across different individuals. Now, then you move further, and then you also create an audit trail to address dependability and conformability concerns. Now, what is audit trail? Audit trail, as the name suggests, it is basically creating a pathway, or what I can say, a flow chart, and that flow chart will act as a guide for any individual who would like to follow your research and want to know whether that person, if follows the same track and if follows the same flow chart, will that person reaches the same position or similar finding what you have come up with. In short, audit trail helps other researchers to ensure that if they follow the same flow chart, the same flow of your activities, your actions, then they will come up with a very similar result, if not exact results, similar results to what you have found. Why it is done? This is done to ensure generalizability of your finding. What I'm trying to say is that many a times people may question your finding and say that no, I doubt that whatever that you have collected and analyzed and what you are presenting is basically manipulated finding, and the real finding is different, and your current finding is biased. So then you give them a audit trail, you give them a flowchart, and you say that why don't you follow the same method and approach that I have followed, where I went for data collection, what time it took me to collect data, who were my sample, what was my interview questions, what was my research questions, and how long the interview continued, then how the codification was done. If you follow the same path, then you will come across a similar result. Obviously, exact finding is not possible in qualitative research. This is though possible in quantitative survey method and other approaches, but in case of qualitative research, similar results can be attained. So in that case, the validity, reliability of your findings increases, and this also helps you to basically reach generalizability at an abstract level. So I will not claim that grounded theory is used for generalizability. So anybody would say that how will you generalize your finding? Then you can argue and you can say grounded theory is not meant for generalizability, rather it is meant for theory building. However, having said so, at an abstract level, some generalizability is possible. So this is an important aspect, trustworthiness, that you must include while doing or conducting a grounded theory research. The same can also be followed in other approaches. Now here, I would also like to say that when you do all these things, there is another technique that is followed by scholars, and that also enhances your trustworthiness, and that is intercoder reliability. Now, what is intercoder reliability? In intercoder reliability, basically you share your transcript without any names or disclosing any identity of your informant. You share it with either your co-authors or an subject area expert. So, for example, if I'm a researcher in sports and you are doing a research, conducting a research on athletes, then you may share your transcript with me as a subject area expert, considering me as a subject area expert. And then what would you do? You will also share with me a dictionary of definitions. Now, what kind of definition this will include and why this dictionary? So basically, the initial categories that you will develop, initial themes you will develop, you will have to generate a definition of those themes. So you will explain what these themes mean, why these themes are related to your sample whom you are interviewing. So in that case, you will provide a basic definition of your second and third order constructs. Now, when this dictionary will be with me and I will have a transcript, then I will go through those transcripts, and then I will be asked to see whether my interpretation of those definitions and the transcript are very similar to to the interpretation that you have come up with. So for that, we follow a lot of intercoder reliability tools, for example, or techniques, what you can say. So we have Cohen's Copa coefficient. That is one approach through which you can analyze and see what are the similarity and dissimilarity between two researchers in terms of the codification. There are also other approaches of calculating this intercoder reliability. So that is also one approach that you can follow to increase the trustworthiness. But these four are the major. They should be followed along with the intercoder reliability, which is also very prominently used, very commonly used in grounded theory research and also in other qualitative research, in fact. So intercoder reliability tools like Cohen's Copa coefficient has a formula. You may Google it. It's very easy, and you have to follow that formula, and it has certain steps. I'll not go in detail to discuss about Cohen's coefficient, but to give you an idea, intercoder reliability is basically the fourth, you can say the fourth aspect that can be considered while increasing the trustworthiness of your grounded theory research. Now, here there is another thing that we would like to that you should know, and that is very particular for grounded theory, and that is triangulation. So, triangulation looks very similar to what we have discussed here, trustworthiness and audit trail basically. But in triangulation, what we do here, we triangulate our findings. So, we reconfirm our findings through either multiple sources or through multiple respondents. What I'm trying to say that in triangulation, basically, if you find that your initial result suggests that A is equal to B, then what you do, you take, and that A is to B has been drawn from person X, then you interview a person Y who is also a relevant informant, and then you see whether X is equal to Y comes through that person as well, or if it is different, then there is a triangulation missing. That means there is something which can be considered as biased or something missing in your data, and you may have to revise your finding again. So triangulation is just like any mathematical validation that we do. So if you have to move from A to B and B to C, then is there any path that can help us to reach from A to C or not? Triangulation is basically just that approach. Now triangulation has two ways, two approaches, two sub methods. One is method approach, second is source approach. In method approach, if initially we have interviewed people, then in method approach, we will not interview people, we will look at some reports, we will look at some videos and speeches and try to see whether different sources also come up with similar finding or not. The another approach for triangulation is source approach. Now, what is source approach? So suppose for your study, if the informants, the person from whom you are collecting data, are managers, are the leaders of the organization, then maybe you will interview some employees and staff to see whether these employees also have a very similar opinion as what your manager and what the CEOs have told you or shared with you. So source approach is just like that. In this triangulation example, which I have taken from my study, I have shown how I interviewed athletes, and I also referred to news articles and others to see how talent management take place in sports organizations. So you can follow either method approach or source approach, or you may follow both the approaches to triangulate your findings. And this is very important because a triangulation basically helps you to develop not just a comprehensive finding, comprehensive result, develop a comprehensive result. It also ensures that whatever statements that you are discussing in your paper, in your research paper, that you are mentioning or claiming is basically validated through multiple sources. Now there is some little differences when you are doing classical grounded theory and also when you are doing constructivist grounded theory or structural grounded theory. So in constructivist grounded theory, we don't say triangulation, we say multiple stakeholder perspective. Now what is multiple stakeholder perspective? Basically, in multiple stakeholder perspective, you interview just like source method, to triangulate through just like source method, where you interview more than one source of respondent or informant, and then you try to develop a collective or comprehensive story out of that. Whereas in classical grounded theory, you simply you do triangulation just to supplement your finding, and and these triangulated findings are not actually used in your main research. Whereas in constructivist grounded theory, even the data collected through multiple stakeholder perspective are used in your main findings or main results. So this is all about triangulation. In the next presentation, I will talk about some other miscellaneous aspects of grounded theory research. But till now, whatever that we have discussed are the core and most important aspects of grounded theory research that you must know while going to the field, while designing qualitative research, especially grounded theory research. I hope you have liked my video. Please like and share my video. That's all. Thank you.